With the honourable member for Battle River Crowfoot.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And as always, it's an honour to be able to rise in this place to debate in issues that are so important to Canadians. And I would just thank my honourable colleague from the West Edmonton Mall constituency, and he did bring up my predecessor, who I remember very fondly, having worked with and volunteered on his campaigns in my home constituency of Battle River Crowfoot, prior to that being Crowfoot. And just a big shout out to Kevin Sorensen, who was chair of the Public Accounts Committee during the 42nd Parliament, and it was his birthday the other day. I won't tell this House how old he is, but a big happy birthday to Kevin, and I know he was able to enjoy some time with his grandkids. Mr. Speaker, here we are again talking about government corruption. You know, it has become something that has not only, that I hear about regularly as a Conservative MP, but has truly disillusioned so many in our country about whether or not they can trust government. And increasingly across the country, north, south, east and west, and everywhere in between, Mr. Speaker, we hear increasingly that Canadians simply cannot trust the government. And Mr. Speaker, the reason why this is so concerning is it's one thing to disagree with the government, disagree with their policies, disagree with their ideology, disagree with their policies. But increasingly, Mr. Speaker, because of the last 8 years, that Liberal government, that Prime Minister has decreased the trust. There's been a significant erosion of trust into Canadians' trust in our general institutions. And Mr. Speaker, why that's so problematic is because it transcends politics. It transcends any particular party. The damage that has been done to this country by that Prime Minister and those Liberals has truly created a circumstance where there are more people all the time that are saying that they simply do not believe that our country can continue to function as is. And Mr. Speaker, as a parliamentarian, as somebody who believes so very much in the future of our country, somebody who's proud to represent those constituents in Battle River Crowfoot, Mr. Speaker, it is so unfortunate and distressing that because of that Prime Minister and those Liberals and all the MPs in the Liberal caucus, in the NDP caucus and the Bloc caucus that prop him up. So here we are today debating another motion that brought forward by committee that speaks to some of this corruption. And Mr. Speaker, it truly emphasizes the point that the Leader of the Opposition, the member from Carleton, the point that he has made, that everything in Canada feels broken. And that is certainly the case when it comes to the cover-up that seems to be taking place with the revelations, whistleblower revelations that have taken place from SDTC. Now, Mr. Speaker, there is a report that we have that was that the minister requested be done on some of these documents. And Mr. Speaker, it is at the Ethics Committee we asked for this document. And we had Liberal members, along with the Bloc and the NDP, that talked about, oh, well, we'll just ask nicely. We'll just ask nicely. And although myself, and I know the member from Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes, and other Conservatives made the case saying it's past time to ask nicely because this Liberal government refuses to be honest, refuses to allow for the truth to get out. We have a report before us that is heavily redacted. That while we asked for those answers, while Conservatives brought forward a motion that would have demanded those answers, it was the other political parties in this place that joined together to allow the cover-up to continue. And we have here that are allegations, whistleblowers that came forward because they were distressed at how there were millions of dollars and words being thrown about saying that this could make the sponsorship scandal seem small, that there is a level of corruption and connections with Liberal insiders that is truly astounding, which contributes to that further erosion of trust. To the point, Mr. Speaker, where increasingly I hear from constituents and folks across our country that find it difficult difficult to keep track of the number of scandals that this Prime Minister finds himself embroiled in. And to the point where not only is it increasingly making it a challenge for this government to administer things related to government, and that trust being broken with Canadians, and millions of dollars that are disappearing and in a way that has become commonplace. But Mr. Speaker, it also, and this cannot be lost in the midst of this, it has reduced the trust that any Canadian has in that government being able to accomplish their objectives. Now again, agree or disagree with what the objective is, one should be able to trust that the government would work towards fulfilling it. We saw, and the proof of this is so very, very clear with that government's own Environment Commissioner's report that was released earlier this week. Mr. Speaker, we see that the Liberals are failing to meet their targets, yet they are spending hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars in things where money's being skimmed off the top. It leads one to that conclusion. And the insiders seem to be the ones that get these lucrative contracts, where $38 million in a $1 billion green slush fund evaporates, and while whistleblowers are coming and telling saying as loud as they can, releasing publicly some of this information, you have the members of this House in every other political party covering up that corruption. Mr. Speaker, and as the Environment Commissioner, this cannot be lost, and not only is there corruption, but the corruption is leading to this government not being able to accomplish anything. Carbon tax not leading to emissions reductions. The fact that we have a whole host of green programs, more than I could name probably in a 10-minute speech, Mr. Speaker, that are not leading to the promised emissions reductions. And then you have, when it comes to the report that we are debating here today from the Public Accounts Committee, and let me quote this because I think that it is so it's quite something. So these are not my words, Mr. Speakers. Parliamentarians and, more importantly, taxpayers must have complete confidence and oversight over the federal government's long-term strategy to achieve net zero, or the current plan should be scrapped in its entirety. Mr. Speaker, it goes on to say, through their own admission, neither department studied the report, and they could studied in this report could accurately state net zero was possible. Mr. Speaker, we see that the government's own admissions are now realizing that they cannot accomplish their objectives. We have a corrupt Prime Minister and a corrupt government being propped up by a host of either willing participants or those who are blind and are showing an unbelievable level of cowardice to the corruption that is being perpetuated within our country, which is contributing to that erosion of trust that is taking place in our government. And we hear, Mr. Speaker, time and time again, this is not simply Conservatives saying this. In fact, recently, in a study that took place at the Access to Information and Ethics Committee, which I'm proud to be a part of, we studied the idea and issues surrounding government access to information. And increasingly, Mr. Speaker, in fact, that Prime Minister divides at every turn for his own political gain. Yet increasingly you see, whether it's premiers from coast to coast uniting against the carbon tax as an example, or when it comes to unanimous agreement, Mr. Speaker, and this is very, very important, unanimous agreement that the access to information system was broken. Every witness that came to committee agreed that the access to information system in Canada was broken, with one exception. The former president of the Treasury Board was the only one, the only witness that came to testify before the Ethics Committee. She was the only one that said that there was not a problem. And it is that willful blindness, that ignorance, or that intentionality that is leading to a culture of secrecy, a culture of corruption that needs to be addressed. Canadians have zero confidence in this government's ability to accomplish its objectives. Canadians have zero trust in this Liberal government's ability to administer with integrity the public purse. And increasingly, I'm hearing from Canadians from coast to coast to coast that are ready for a change, for somebody to bring common sense back to this country, so that when they pay taxes, when tax time comes, they can trust the fact that while the government government takes, they can trust that it's being administered properly, because that has been destroyed by those Liberals. It's time to bring home some common sense to our country. It's time to bring back some integrity to our government. And the only way that that happens, Mr. Speaker, is when the member from Carleton, after what will be a carbon tax election, when he can take the Prime Minister's chair and bring home that common sense to this nation, restore trust in our governmental institutions to truly bring back the Canadian advantage that has been lost under those Liberals and that Prime Minister.